now Tim Beaty, your driver of the Sawmill Express. Tim, thank you for joining us. How are you this evening, sir?
I'm really good. How are you doing?
Doing really well. I'm going to have you do us one quick favor before we get going for real. I want you to take your phone, turn it long ways for us. That's going to automatically fill that whole screen, or at least it should. There we go. Perfect.
There we go.
Awesome. So let's talk about the Pullers Championship, May 16th and 17th in Nashville, Illinois. Are you excited to be going?
Yeah, we lucked out and got in that. It was a lot of trucks that had to be voted on to get in. We was lucky to get in. So
what does it mean to you to hear from the fans, and to have your name make that list, just to know that you're one of the ones of the whole country that the fans want to see there? Is that kind of an extra special feeling knowing that they're supporting you like that?
Oh, yeah, that's got to be special for anybody, for 200 plus trucks to be voted on and make it in out of, get down to 20 and make it. So that's really, really means a lot.
Absolutely. Have you pulled? Now, this will be your first time pulling at the Pullers Championship, correct?
Yes, I've never pulled there before.
Okay, so you've never pulled at Nashville, period. You've not gone up there for pulls with PPL or any other associations in the past?
No, I haven't.
Have you been calling your buddies and asking them about the track or studying any film, or is this one of those things you're just going to show up and do your thing?
I've watched a lot of pulling go on there, but our teammates has pulled there before, I think, the Sullivans.
Sure.
So, we're just, we kind of pull as a team. So we'll just, every track is different. So when you get there, you got to figure out what you need to do, motor-wise, gear-wise, tire pressure-wise. There's lots to go on there. So
talk to us about, your past and your teammates. How is it that you and the Sullivans got to be working together, and what's it like working with the group that essentially created this class?
Well, I pulled four-wheel drive. I pulled a two-wheel drive from 1980, 81 to about 85, many years ago. So I've done it for years. I got back in the four-wheel drive business, pulled two four-wheel drives for many years, 25 years probably. And I always wanted to get back into two-wheel drive business. And I've known the Sullivans and known Dwayne for years. And so they priced a truck, and I guess you say the rest is history.
Sure.
Real good teammates. I'd do anything for them. They would do anything for me. I couldn't really do it without their help. They're really good. So we'll have a new truck. We got a brand new truck to be out this year. We about got it done. So it'll be all brand new. So
that's awesome. When did you find yourself? What year was it that you took over the Sawmill Express and you found yourself in the driver's seat of that one?
It was 2019 or 2020, somewhere in there when I purchased it. It's been pulling it 4 or 5 years. We've won a lot of pulls and lost a lot too, but we have really done good with it. So, and had a lot of fun. Just something about pullers. You get to see a lot of people, and the pulling family is kind of different. You get that pulling family, and you miss seeing them if you don't go. So.
Yeah, I completely understand that. As Cole and I were just talking in our last interview, that's almost, what it's all about, is being out there with these people who help you grind it out and just seeing them in and out there and all that time. You talked about having some good success over the past 4 or 5 years with this truck. Tell us about some wins or some passes that kind of come to your mind that you're most proud of, or something that you've enjoyed the most since you've been driving this particular truck.
We've won a few pulls in Florida, one last year in Florida. We won a big pull in Rockwell, Iowa back last year.
Yeah, very big Grand National pull up there.
Oh, we got 7th at Bowling Green out of 66. I figure that's nearly a win if it's 20. You know what I mean? Yeah. I was 48th hook. I was pretty much the first hook in the third class, So
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
What was there anything left in the track at that? I mean, obviously there was enough for 7th place, but was that thing chewed up and spit out, or was it coming back around?
That track up there actually goes back together real good.
Mm-hmm.
I was 48th hook and wound up 7th. So that tells you it's holding together pretty good.
Definitely. Would you say Bowling Green's one of your favorite places to pull, or do you have, a particular track that you enjoy more than anything else?
That black truck is really done good at Bowling Green. My buddy Donnie 2 years ago, I couldn't make it up there, and he almost won the ring with it. So that black truck has really done well at Bowling Green. So it's really it's a good track. It stays together. I mean, the last truck can win.
Talk to us about, you said that you started off in the two-wheel drive division, spent some time in the mod four-wheel class. When was it? When did your four-wheel drive days come to an end? And maybe kind of compare driving a four-wheeler compared to a super modified two-wheel drive truck.
Well, we run pro stock trucks, what we ran, but there's a lot of difference. That blower is, you really gotta. You can't leave. You got to watch how you drive one. You blow the tires off. Big difference, a big step up. But I come into it pretty quick. Won some pulls the first year I started driving it. So, and the next year we won several pulls, and it just NTPA is a lot. Like last year, we just run the Grand National Circuit, and that seemed like Ace 40 trucks everywhere we went. It's just a lot of trucks, a lot of competition, good competition.
It feels to me recently that the super modified two-wheel drive trucks are kind of having a bit of a resurgence. There was a while, with all respect given, and a lot of people will say this, that they were kind of becoming the class that the fans weren't getting that excited about. They would kind of, take a break during that. There's been a lot more buzz about this class lately. The points races are really, really tight, and we're seeing a big involvement. You talk about everywhere you go, there's 40 trucks, but I feel like any of those 40 can win. Those aren't field fillers. Would you say this is one of the toughest classes to walk away with a win right now in pulling?
If you in this class you walk away the top 5, you've really done good because of the competition you're pulling again. Because anybody you pull again any other night can beat you. So there's nothing to say that you can win any night, but you got to have all your ducks in a row and everything perfect to win every night. That's not going to happen.
You talked about earlier, talking about having those ducks in a row. You mentioned tire pressure. You mentioned track reading. In your class specifically, what are some things that a driver or, a mechanic or whatever really needs to pay attention to if you're going to be consistent and be successful?
Well, the biggest part of it is just how you drive the truck. I know you got to set your truck up for wherever the horsepower of the track. You can take horsepower out or put it in, but you've got to figure out what you need for what track you're on. And tire pressure, it means a little, but you got to set your truck up for however you're going to leave or however the track is. If you got a real good track, you put whatever you got in there and hope for the best. Some tracks you really have to drive your truck.
Sure. Let's bring this back to the Pullers Championship. It's getting to be a very a destination pull. It's a resume pull. A lot of pullers want to get there. What are your buddies telling you about that track, or what have you seen from watching video? Does that look like one where you're going to be able to just put all the weight on the nose and just throw everything you got at it out of the hole? Or, what's kind of going through your mind right now as you prepare for this one?
Well, it's hard to say a lot about the track. You see how the dirt is, because every track is different. You can have one track good tonight, tomorrow night it not be as good,
Sure.
The moisture content in it means a lot. Yep. And, how it packs back in. But from what I see, it's a good track. So, just have to look at it and see what you need to go from how the dirt looks,
So they had super modified two-wheel drives there the first year that they had it, and then it went away for a while. They've come back again. The pull has really, really grown quite a bit. Obviously, it's not Bowling Green yet. It's not Hillsboro or Wisner, Nebraska. But what would a win at the Pullers Championship mean to you? Or what does this pull in and of itself? Does this one kind of have a special spot as a big pull for you?
What makes so special about that? Because there's been 200 to 300 trucks that wanted to go.
Yeah.
And you can say, well, you go up there and win that pull. Well, it was a bunch of trucks wanted this trophy, but that's what would be nice about it, because so many trucks wanted to go and didn't get to go. There's a lot of good trucks that's going to be a watching, and that's something to look at right there. That you did make it in and they didn't. So I'm glad we made it in. We'll just see what goes on from there.
Is it a fun opportunity to be able to pull against pullers from other associations, maybe people that you don't always run against, like an outdoor Louisville? You're going to have your Grand National champion there. You're going to have your outlaw champion there. Is this an opportunity to see some trucks that maybe you don't see the rest of the year?
We see a lot of the trucks through the year. We see them. We got their path in somewhere in maybe Wisconsin or Iowa. A lot of them we see somewhere down the road, and most of them I know, and some of them I don't know. But they're all good trucks. They can beat you. Anybody can win a pull, It just takes one miss up and there you are. You always look back and say, well, I should have let more air out, or I should run a different gear, or I should have had more. I mean, there's always something, what if, after the pull,
So this is a perfect timing. Actually got a couple of videos of some passes that you've made recently, Friday and Saturday night in Lexington. I want to take a look at some of these videos. You're talking about the coulda, shouldas, and the what ifs. Let's watch these together, and I want you to look back and say, oh, if I could do that one again, here's what I would have done, exactly like you're talking about. Kinsey, go ahead and give us that Friday night from Lexington with the Sawmill Express. All right, folks, if you're just joining us, we're back here with Tim Beaty, driver of Sawmill Express. We just took a look at his run in Lexington, Kentucky, Friday night. We're talking about adjustments. We're talking about feedback. After watching that pull, were there any what ifs, or are you pretty pleased with that one?
What I would have probably backed up, redone, I might have put a little more weight in the back, and I'd have probably a little more air out tires and not left. I left a little too aggressive.
So was this one of these where the wagon was maybe just a little heavier than you anticipated, or the track itself was
itself was kind of loose, and you just can't lease. You got to really hook your truck up. You just got to weight it down and just hope for the best. But I left a little too aggressive there.
How tricky is that on an indoor pull compared to an outdoor pull where you're 60 feet shorter worth of track to deal with?
Well, it is it's different because you've not got that. You've got like 250 foot, 240 is all you got there, and we're outdoors. You got 350. That just like that. We went to Ocala back in the spring, and we won on Friday night with a track similar. Didn't leave as aggressive, and of course we got second on a Saturday night, but you just same thing. Or I left too aggressive on Saturday night at Ocala. You just really got to be easy on that throttle on a bad track, on a loose track, should I say?
Yeah. So when it's move a little to the back, you got to make sure it's set, make sure it's planted. Compare that to your pro stock 4-wheel drive. Could you get into the throttle sooner and more aggressively?
No, yeah, on the pro stock 4-wheel drive, I would have left it to probably 8,500 off the line.
Oh yeah. What do you typically leave out with the 2-wheeler?
I leave it somewhere around. It leaves about 3,000, starts taking off, and then it's just how aggressive you want to be with that throttle. You can really mess up. That right hand can really get you in trouble.
And do you think for a young driver, is that maybe one of the biggest things they have to learn, is that right hand can get a little itchy and get a little antsy, and learning to have that control and that patience?
It has a lot. The first 75 foot of a hook, I don't care what your tractor, truck, no matter what, that first 75 foot is really tells you what you're going to do for the next 250. It's just, you've really got to get it going that first 75 foot.
How much of that data is relayed to you through your tack and your gauges, and how much of that you're feeling in the seat of your pants as a veteran, and you just know that you've got it or don't got it?
Well, when you lead too aggressive, you know right off your motor buzzes up and your tires are busting. Tires busting the ground. And it's not hooking up. You've left too aggressive, and then when you don't leave aggressive enough, you get out there about 100 foot, and that sled hits you. You think, oh no, no. So
I don't have enough apples in this cart for this wagon, and I imagine on an indoor pool, I've heard people use the analogy, you're almost trying to outrun the sled because that box is going to come up so much more quickly and so much more aggressively, and you need that head of steam when it does find you.
Well, on an indoor pool like that, you got to kill your motor some because the track is not hooking up as good, and you kind of figure out how much you need to kill it for whatever you need to do. You can kill one too much, but you don't want to plumb kill it, but you've got to take some out.
I was talking with some pulling friends this past weekend, and we were talking about which classes love to get out and run. On an outdoor track, of course, you've got over 100 extra feet compared to an indoor track, but the super modified two-wheel drive truck class, you guys don't always necessarily want to get out there in the 380s and the 390s. Is closer to 300 a better distance for you guys? Somewhere
around 320, 330, but man, out in Iowa, I went 396 foot. That's stretching it out there.
Tell us, first of all, congratulations. Second of all, the 400 foot club. Have you ever tickled 400 before?
No.
That's a new thing I'm doing. I'm asking pullers because there's a couple of us outlaws. The outlaws really like to get out and run with some of those big distances, and a couple of them hit that 400. Why is it that two-wheelers are more satisfied in the 320 range than the 380 range?
Well, you run your truck so hard to get out there, and you're getting out there at 400 foot. You could be getting a little low on fuel if you don't have a big tank. Mean, a lot of if, ands, and buts, but that is really stretching it.
Sure. That's a long length of time that you're running a supercharged motor. For a lot of people, pulling borrows and overlaps with drag racing to a certain bit. And some of my drag racing friends talk about, this is good for 8 seconds or 9 seconds. And I heard Ken Vinny one time talk about, we're going to be doing this for 30 seconds, which is an eternity on these types of motors compared to the other sports. You push it out to 400 and you're just asking a lot of the power plant at that point.
Yeah, you're looking at, our runs around 20 seconds or something like that, or maybe in the low 20s. And you're burning a lot of fuel and making a lot of heat, and anything could happen. I mean, that blower could, anything could happen at that 400 foot mark. You're really getting it up there. That's too far.
Sure. So let's talk about let's say that it's a Friday night, and you make a mega pass. You win the class, you go way out there, and it's a long run. Let's say you get north of 350. What is you take it back to the trailer? What are some of the first things that are on your checklist and on your to-do list? What do you do between a Friday and a Saturday to make sure you're going to be successful on both nights?
Well, first thing you do, you go back and check the oil filter.
Mm-hmm.
You make sure that you ain't got no cuttings or aluminum in it, and you did check your valves and just check everything, make sure you didn't. That's just, that's a long run, so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a lot of pressure. That blower puts a lot of pressure. A lot of
when you are doing a 2-day show, which 90% of the shows that you do are going to be of that nature, is it in your class or in any class in pulling, are you going to get off the track, take it back to the trailer, and you're immediately going to look into it and you're going to check the data and you're going to make sure that everything's where you want it to be? Or is that a project that you leave for Saturday morning?
We'll go back and let it cool down, but we'll go back and check we'll download the computer and see how our cylinders ran, see if we're where we need to be on the cylinders, and then it cools down. We'll check the oil filter, but we'll not check the valves till it cools down good. But the first thing you do is we'll go back and download the run and see RPMs, how hot the plugs got, what kind of boost we had, you check all that. So.
When did you say the first year you went tractor pulling was?
1981.
If you could have told yourself in 1981, hey, a part of your routine when you go pulling, the first thing you're going to do when you get back to the trailer, you're going to plug it into this machine and it's going to give you instant feedback on, cylinder, everything that they're performing. What would you have thought in that time? I mean, you're talking about that's just bread and butter. You go back and you plug it in. The sport has changed. Tell us a little bit about that.
You're talking about sport changing. Back in, if you had a set of 990 heads or a good set of 460 heads or, something like that, you're doing really good. And a lot of times you had to work on a lot. They didn't make good parts back in. You couldn't buy good parts. You couldn't buy these good transmissions at that time. We're around my area. TARS is different. You had two sets of TARs back in. We pulled in two classes. We pulled in a 5800 two-wheel drive, which they called that a modified class. Then they had the open class, which is 6200. And I usually took two sets of TARs. I'd change the small class, had the 31s, and the open class, you run the 34s at that time. So about the time I was getting out of it, just getting into the bigger TARs, the ones that run now, like we got on now, and that's just, so it has really changed. I mean, it's just ain't nowhere, and it's just unbelievable how much it has changed. That's been 43 years, 44 years ago.
How much of an advantage and how important is that technology? Having that computer and having that data, is that just a huge game changer? And does that impact your setup day by day quite a bit?
That impacts and telling you how hot your engine is getting, your plugs. You can tell what temperature you run. You don't want to melt it down, because if you try to we try to keep up with what fuel mixture and how much fuel we're putting in the motor, by the condensing of the air. So we got to gauge. We check the air with before we chow. That's how we do our motors. That's how we fuel them, on how the air is. So if you get one too lean, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to melt it down. So you really got to watch that. You got to have the right mixture of fuel and air, or you will melt it down.
Yeah, lean is mean and fat is safe, but too lean. We've all been at a pulling track where we've seen someone pushing that right to the edge, and things didn't go the way that they wanted to. I
did run one out of fuel at the end of the track, and it wasn't good.
Because then you were just burning. You were essentially burning the air, and things got a little too volatile. I take it
too long hooking up, and stood there too long to let me go. And they got to the end of the track, and they thought I'd let off of it, but I didn't let off of it. It ran out of fuel, and it bent about every rod in it. So,
Was this a Friday night pass or a Saturday night pass?
It was a 1 day pass, just a Saturday night pass.
So we didn't have to, go back, and you weren't cooked for the weekend anyway.
Just
what are still some of your goals? What do you still have left out there? You said you grabbed some big wins at Rockwell. You're super excited to be in at the Pullers Championship. You do well at Bowling Green, a place that everybody wants to do well at. What are you still chasing out there?
Well, Grand National Championship is awful nice. My buddy Donnie got it year before last, and we was up in competition there real good. Up then this got a bad deal or two there, so we was right there with him. But that's another story. But you're looking at that championship. That's what I'm running NTPA Grand National again this year with both trucks, and so we'll see what goes on there. So we got Iowa. Iowa's RJ's got a big pad out there, so there's 50 trucks in that. So
are you headed to Farley? We just talked to Cole Zajac, and he said that was definitely one he was going to be going to.
Both trucks are in at Farley.
Both trucks are in. The Sawmill Express and the Big Stick are going to be in while we're there. And Tim, you still with us? All right, folks. Looks like Tim might have had some connection issues. We're going to give him a second and see if we can find some stuff right there. This does happen from time to time. We're chatting with Tim Beaty right now. He's telling us about the Pullers Championship in Nashville, Illinois, that he's going to be attending here May 16th and 17th. If I were to guess, it's gone completely black. If I were to guess, folks, I would almost say that his phone may have died on him. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up with Tim Beaty. We wish him the best of luck in Nashville. He's also pulling at Farley, and he says he is chasing a Grand National Points Championship. So we hope all of that goes well. Got a few minutes before we bring our next guest on. What I'm going to do at this point, let's talk about what we're seeing in the social media world out there. Couple of fun stories that I just kind of drummed up. If you've been out in the social media and just kind of flipping through Facebook, some things that that I saw that I want to draw some people's attention to. It's always good to see what's going on everywhere out there. The Rough Stuff pulling team, they've got their cat ready to go overseas. Tractor's almost ready for next Saturday. Then we start our first competition game of the year. Really, really cool one. Found this in the Beer Money pulling team group. I believe it's powered by a 3208 cat. If nothing else, it's got the cat sheet metal on there. Fun stuff to be checking out on Facebook. Jeremy Roberts joined us on Let's Grow Pulling about a month ago. They featured him on the Pullers Championship, 2023 champion, Jeremy Roberts. They're going to be pulling back there. Jeremy went ahead and he shared that. He's excited to be pulling in Nashville again this year. Fun interview. We wish him the best of luck. Here's a good one from just down the road from me, down there around Mexico, Missouri, Thompson, Missouri, Hagedorn Racing Engines. Folks, this is one I really want to talk about. Said, well, we're gonna need a bigger dyno. He is dynoing the Game Changer. He calls this one the Game Changer. Over 813 cubic inch. It's so big he thinks he needs a bigger dyno. Terry Hagedorn. I'll tell you what, folks, he's got another one. That's Game Changer. You haven't even heard of Game Over yet. And then finally, good friend that I made in Louisville this year, Jan Lowe. He was out in Fuchtorf, Germany, taking some pictures this weekend. Go check out Jan Lowe's Facebook page. He's a phenomenal photographer. He does great work. Tim, did you drop your phone, sir?
I don't know. It went off, sir. So.
Well, we were just wrapping things up. That's going to bring us right about to the cutting edge of the end of your time here with you. We want to thank you for joining Let's Grow Pulling this evening. Thank you for telling us so much about the super modified two-wheel drive truck class. Anybody you need to thank before you start on your 2025 season?
Well, I got to thank the Sullivans. They've been awful good to me to help me do whatever I need to do. So I, really couldn't do without them. And my buddy Randy Jones. I mean, we got a lot of help, but Donnie and Wayne and Grouse and all, they already helped me a lot. So.
Well said.
Really,
absolutely.
Really good team to be on, I'm telling you.
Absolutely. Yeah.